Hey everybody, it's Carter Froelich. And our mission at Launch Development Finance Advisors is to be a hero to the land development and home building community. We do that through a lot of different ways, but one of the ways that I want to give back to the industry is to be able to share our experience as well as the experience of a myriad of different players in our industry, their experience, what they've learned, what they're doing, and just the knowledge that they have to provide to the industry. With that having been said, I hope you enjoy this episode. And if there's anything that we can do at launch to help you finance infrastructure, reduce costs, mitigate risk, all with the goal of enhancing project profitability and returns, please give us a call at the contact information in the show notes.
Welcome to the Land to Lots podcast, powered by Launch Development Finance Advisors. And now your host, Carter Froelich.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Land to Lots podcast. My name is Carter Froelich, and today we're pulling back the curtain on one of California's most powerful tools for residential development, and that's the statewide Community Infrastructure Program, otherwise known as SCIP, and that is sponsored by the California State Community Development Authority, otherwise known as CSCDA. So with all of these different abbreviations, kicking off the podcast today, along with others that we're going to be speaking about, I'd like to welcome to the stage James Hamill, the Managing Director of CSCDA, and Bob Williams, the Managing Director of RBC Capital Markets and the underwriter behind the CSCDA SCIP program. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Good morning.
James, before we get going and dive into the background, I'd like to get a little background for both you and from Bob. So let's kick it off with you. Could you give the audience a brief description of yourself and how you came into CSCDA and a little of the history of the program?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, Carter, for having us today. So I am a recovering attorney by trade. I practiced law for a couple of years, was worked in the bankruptcy courts, and decided that I would rather find ways to get people money rather than take it away. And so wound my way into CSCDA back in 2001 to jump into something I'd never done before, and have been with the authority for now 25 plus years. Working on various types of programs, but the main focus has been, since its inception, the SCIP program, as you mentioned, and really building this out from what was a very small program where we were begging people out there to participate, begging cities, begging counties, begging districts, begging developers, to what has become a very large and useful program throughout the state of California and all across the state. So it's been an honor and a pleasure to work on this and build this program out. So that's a little bit of background on myself.
Great. Thanks, James. Bob, how about you? Same question.
Okay, well, I'm a managing director here at RBC Capital Markets. I am involved in all of our California land secured transactions. I started my career way back in 1985, and I have been doing land secured business in California since 1985. Started a lot of that business in the Central Valley. Initially, I was with Sutro, which is an old San Francisco kind of California investment bank. And that was kind of the roots of that sort of local regional experience. RBC bought Sutro in 2002, and so I have been involved in basically land secured that whole time. But I also do a lot of general government financing. I mean, a lot of city financing, redevelopment back when we had redevelopment, et cetera. And it's kind of interesting. I can drive through the state and just see projects everywhere, particularly with SCIP, since we have literally done hundreds and hundreds of projects. As far as SCIP goes, really the genesis back was there was a fellow named John Knox and I that developed a program in Brentwood where we would finance impact fees for non-contiguous projects. In other words, different developers that were developing. And the idea was we were going to finance fees instead of infrastructure. And the reason was we would then give those fees to the city, and then the city would use that to put in their infrastructure. And developers initially said, "Oh, why do I want to finance? I don't want to finance fees. I want to finance infrastructure."
Yeah.
Well, the idea sort of then John and I started thinking, gosh, if it works for non-contiguous projects in Brentwood, why doesn't it work for non-contiguous projects everywhere? So
Yeah.
we went to CSCDA and started the program. Initially, it just did fees. We found out that not all fee programs were effective in cities, so we expanded it to include infrastructure. Initially, the program was assessment districts because if you're doing a pool, quite frankly, assessment districts are a whole lot easier to manage.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then we kind of bent to the will of the industry and expanded it to CFDs. And now I really think that, the program just is sort of it's very flexible. It does CFDs, it does assessment districts, we do pools, we do standalones. And like James said, we would run around begging people to join. And now we're figuring out how we can defer them to later tranches. So that's kind of the quick overview.
Yeah. No, that is awesome. And I can't tell you, Bob and James, how many, we work all over the country and trying to get other states and jurisdictions to finance fees. It is like pulling teeth. It is so hard to do. But we do it all the time in California, and so we're gonna you left a lot on the table there, guys, and that we're gonna dig into. So let's just start at the beginning. So CSCDA has a lot of different financing initiatives, and Bob, you talked about it, and we'll talk primarily about SCIP and the assessment districts as one pool, I think, and then the other being the CFDs, and focus on those primarily for our listeners. But James, are there any other initiatives that our listeners should be aware of other than the assessment district financing and as well as the CFDs?
Yeah, so I mean, CSCDA was created in 1988, so we've been around almost 40 years now. And as you mentioned, have a lot of different programs, ranging from nonprofit 501c3 financing to affordable housing financing to property access clean energy financing. Kind of what we focus on from CSCDA's perspective is creating tools for both the public sector and the private sector. So really, this is a public-private partnership to create programs that maybe a city, county, district doesn't want to do, doesn't have the resources to do, and where we come in. And that is obviously the evolution of the SCIP program. But we do it in other sectors such as housing, such as nonprofits, and such as clean energy are really the main other areas that we focus on.
Okay. And James, when a builder or developer gives you a call, what is one of the most common misunderstandings you hear about the SCIP program? Or
Yeah, I think the biggest misunderstanding is that CSCDA and the SCIP program only does assessment districts. We always hear you don't do CFDs. We hear you don't do CFDs. And we know that's a tool that developers want to use. It's the most flexible tool out there. And so we've heard some people said they don't call us and they don't reach out to us because they hear we only do assessment districts. And as Bob pointed out, we did historically, but back in 2020, we made the change to do CFDs as part of the pool, and we also do them on a standalone basis.
great. So now we're going to start peeling back the onion and drilling down. So we have the assessment district program. We have the CFD program. We'll just keep it in those two buckets for this conversation. And Bob, what are the types of infrastructure that the two programs, the assessment district and the CFD, can finance so that we start building our structure underneath these two buckets?
I'll get to that question, but first I kind of want to frame the structure the structure of SCIP in a different way.
Sure.
There is basically, we do have a pooled program, okay,
Mhm.
where we pool projects and we do 3 series a year. And actually now we're having to split those into separate tranches because of and then we do standalone deals. The
Mhm.
standalone are for the most part CFDs,
Mhm.
and they're larger projects where they need to put in backbone infrastructure up front. The pool, however, is a pool of both assessment districts and CFDs. The difference with the assessment districts is that we are going to be limited to just fees and horizontal fees and improvements, things like roads, water, sewer, parks, storm drain.
Mhm.
If you add in the CFDs, then you can add in facilities. You can add police, fire, school fees, etc. And then the other thing with the assessment district is it's just a fixed lien. Everybody gets the same assessment. It doesn't change over 30 years. With the CFD,
Mhm.
you can kind of craft it. You can mold it around your product type. You can target a specific tax rate. It will escalate at 2% a year. Your 2,500 square foot home doesn't have the same tax as your 1,800 square foot home. And so basically, a lot of it is, there are a lot of cities that just have the legacy AD program. So we've been working to have them update. I would say that developers would, for the most part, prefer CFDs because of its
Mhm.
flexibility, but some they don't care. I mean, if you have a 50 unit project and all you want to do is finance road, water, sewer fees, and you don't care, and you want everybody to have the same tax, then an assessment district's fine. If
Yeah.
you have a project that's got a broader range of product mix, and you don't want everybody to have the same tax, and you want to more specifically target a tax rate, then you're going to prefer the CFD option. But rather than frame SCIP as we either do assessment districts or we do CFDs, I think it's best to understand that we do standalone deals, and those
Mhm.
can be CFDs or ADs. And
Yeah.
we do the pool, and those can be ADs or CFDs as a mix within the pool.
Yeah. And you said something really important, Bobby, because if we have a 50 unit project, and here again, I know this is pretty standard in California to be able to roll these up into the pool transactions.
Mhm.
But in other parts of the country, if you've got 50 units, uh, for the most part, the use of any kind of district, the cost would be too prohibitive. You wouldn't be able to finance anything related to 50 lots. So
Right.
this is, from our perspective, and I still remember at my old firm when one of my partners came in and was talking about this thing called SCIP. And for me, it's just like we could skip the bureaucracy of the cities and we could go at the speed of business. And we didn't really believe it was true.
People like that.
And
People like that too.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so this is such a powerful tool. And this is what I want our audience, to understand that this is truly bringing special district financing to much smaller projects than would otherwise be available prior to this tool being available. So thanks for that, and thanks for the explanation.
I'm going to throw out a statistic, and that is that, the average deal size in the pool is between 2 and 3 million. So you're
Yeah. Wow.
absolutely right.
Mhm.
Nobody's going to go out and do 22 million, $2 million bond issues.
Yeah.
They're not going to do it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Not enough
are you
time
going to
in the
spend, are
day.
you going to
Yeah.
spend the rest of your life doing it? So
Yeah.
yeah, it has brought public financing. It has made it available to a lot of developers and projects that otherwise wouldn't have it. And that was
Yeah.
one of the selling points for CSCDA promoting the program.
Yeah.
And Carter,
So,
if I could
yeah,
piggyback to one thing associated with
sure.
that too, from the city, county, or district perspective, because I think it plays both sides of the table, was, back in the early 2000s, you were starting to have, because impact fees were going up, you had a lot of developers requesting deferral agreements, and
Mhm.
these cities, counties, and districts needed that money now.
Yeah.
But as Bob pointed out, these were very small and you couldn't do a public financing for them. So it was really then the cities, counties, and districts looked at it that, hey, this is a tool to help avoid deferral agreements, but be able to finance these in a cost-effective manner.
Right. And you hit upon something that I'd like to drill down on a little bit. Depending upon where we're working, and a lot of times we see that the jurisdictions want to have the control of the districts. You know, for instance, in Texas or Arizona, in different places, but they don't want to do the work. Okay. And if they're honest, they'll say, hey, I got enough time managing my own city. I don't want to have to manage this district or these other separate political subdivisions. And bringing it back to a little bit now to the SCIP program. Because this truly is a win-win, James, for what you said. No, number one, we get the benefit of potentially financing fees, and we'll get into the mechanics of that, or funding infrastructure that eventually we're going to put on our books. But we, as the city staff, city council, you know, we still have a little approval authority, but we're not necessarily having to do the work. We're offshoring that or off, you know, to CSCDA and your team. Could you talk a little bit about that relationship and what the jurisdictions and agencies like about that, and how has that become a selling point, if you will, you know, for agencies and jurisdictions to join CSCDA?
Yeah, so I think the evolution has been we're seeing more and more agencies, whether it's a city, county, or a special district, want to use your terms, offshore this essentially.
Mhm.
Basically, to your point, is number one, cities, counties, districts don't have a ton of time to handle these. There's a lot of work up front, there's a lot of work in the bond issuance, and there's also work on the back end associated with these. Number two is, we've had a number of agencies that just say we're going to let CSCDA because we have such a historical background in the program, whether it's a standalone or the pool program, that we're just going to allow them to do this because they know how to do it. They know how to do it better than anybody out there. So I think the thing is you're seeing more of that, and I think number three is you have a lot of new younger professionals coming into the government agency side who have never done these before. They've never done an assessment district. They've never done a CFD.
Mhm.
And instead of trying to get everyone up to speed on that, because of the relationship that CCD has with that city, county, or district, they're willing to say, we'll let you do it because you are the professionals that do that on a whole. So we're seeing that more and more out there with agencies really wanting to offload this off their books.
Yep. Great, great.
I might just add one little comment to this, which is that I agree with everything James says, but we do defer to the agency's policies. If the
Mhm.
agency
Yep.
says we want a 1.75 tax rate, we defer to that. So
Yep.
they sort of get the best of the worlds. They frame the policies, but then they don't have to do all the legwork.
Yeah. And to that end, Bob, what are, if you were going to pick a total property tax rate as a percentage of home price, where would you see that most of the programs are at? Is it a 1.75? Is it 2%? Is it, I'm just to give the California builders some sort of reference point.
Well, I mean, in the broadest range, it's going to range from 1.5% to 2%.
Yeah,
2% is, I see 2% when I see basically a master builder coming in and putting a ton of offsite and they need to pay
yeah,
back their equity investors as soon as possible. Most merchant builders do not want to sell homes with a 2%.
yeah.
I would say it's, I'll say it's 1.75 to 1.8 is where
Yeah,
that's kind of the sweet spot.
yeah.
If you get down into the 1.5, 1.6, it's because maybe you don't have a ton of fees that are eligible, et cetera. But there, if most of the merchant builders that we work with are very sensitive to tax rate, and I would say that tax rate ranges from 1.75 to 1.85.
Great. And is there a difference between NorCal and SoCal, in terms of what the market will bear? And I'm just throwing that out to both of you. In the Bay Area, is the all-in tax rate typically lower, or is it higher, or is it about the same throughout the state, in your opinion?
I would say it's not so much we're northern Northern California, Southern California are kind of the same. The one area that I think developer builders are very, very sensitive to tax rates and kind of have sort of historically avoided land security is the Central Valley.
Yeah.
It's the Central Valley is where you go and say, hey, your tax is 185 and you have a $2,500 CF. They go, what? So I
Yeah.
would, if I was to characterize, you take an area like Northern California, Sacramento, you almost have to have a CFD
Yeah.
because it doesn't help you to have a 1,314 tax.
Yeah.
You go to the Central Valley and you have a 175 tax, then it hurts you. So the areas where I see that's more the larger metropolitan areas that have broader use of CFDs historically, uh, they're gonna be living at the 175, whether it's northern, southern. I will say that where I've seen the biggest pushback is Central Valley.
Yeah. Okay. Great. James, what is the ideal point in the development process for a developer builder to engage CSCDA in starting the process, the SCIP process, be it an AD or a CFD?
So I think really starting point would be entitled acreage, and grading underway would be
Mhm.
the starting point, and then obviously you'll move through to tentative map and final map. But that's really the starting point that Bob and our team and the entire SCIP team starts talking to people, and seeing, does this qualify? Does this not qualify? If you're anything before that point in time, there's just too much uncertainty with the project on
Yeah.
whether it's going to develop, if it's not, when it's going to develop. So that's usually the starting gate that we put out there to the development community.
Okay.
I'm going to
And
add
then
a
what
little
is
bit.
that timeline?
Oh,
Oh, go ahead, Bob. Sorry.
I'm going to add a little bit to that because what one interesting thing is the pool has 3 series a year. We have a spring, fall, and winter. And so say a developer comes in and has a tentative map and he's still getting his improvement plans approved. We say, you're not ready for spring. Why don't you defer to the
Yeah.
fall? So I call it, there's always another bus leaving the station.
Yeah.
Ideally, if you want to be in the pool, you have a final map, you are very near or complete to having finished lots, and you're starting your vertical process. And if you're not there, like say you have $3 million worth of work left to finish your lots, instead of issuing May, just issue in September.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then you'll be done.
And is the market pushing back for the two different programs between AD, CFD, meaning we want to see some vertical, we want to see sticks in the air, we want to see certificates of occupancy, we've de-risked the transaction. And I know there's nuances related to both of those, but have you seen the market respond differently to those two timeframes?
Well, first of all, the program is shifting more and more to CFDs. The ADs,
Yeah.
I would say that we're probably the only agency left that does ADs. And again, it's
Yeah.
for simple projects. I wouldn't say the market so much differentiates. One of the things that we'll probably get into as part of this discussion is our pool has an investment grade rating. So
Yeah.
when you sell bonds through the pool, we have right now it's a triple B category rating. And I see in your questions about rates and stuff, and
Yeah.
I'll ask you.
Yeah.
The entity that is most concerned about ADs versus CFDs is Standard and Poor's.
Yeah. Really?
They like
Okay.
they like CFDs better because of the coverage than they like the assessment districts. Remember,
Yeah.
the assessment districts have a one times coverage,
Yeah.
whereas with the CFD you're at 110. So I
110.
wouldn't say that the investors, they kind of shrug it off. They're looking at the pool as a whole.
Yeah.
If you really want to get technical, the people that have a preference, it's Standard and Poor's, and they
Yeah.
prefer CFDs to assessment districts.
That's really
But I also
interesting.
would say that the mix of the pool is shifting more towards CFDs than ADs.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And when you say the pool has an investment grade rating, what is the average coupon rate that one would expect on a pool AD or and versus a standalone CFD? Since we talked about rates.
Well, um, I don't know how long I go into this, but when we first started the pool, it was
Yeah,
very difficult to sell. We had two buyers. We had Franklin and Naveen, and we were
yeah,
typically about 25 basis points cheaper than the standalones. So, the standalone really is a broader question. It's a question of where are you doing the standalone? Is it 50% developed, or are you
yeah.
doing offsites at 3 to 1? So, the spreads can vary. So I'll just tell you, our last deal, pool sold at plus 65 to MMD. And
Okay.
now, if and that was a largely these are largely undeveloped projects. And in other words, they're back to that stage where you have finished lots, but you're just starting to go vertical. We're not
Mhm.
saying, hey, developer, why don't you sit around until you're 75% developed and we'll finally get around to issuing your bonds.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well,
It,
we're early, we will issue early stage. So in looking at comps on that last sale for early stage deals, they were at plus 85 to plus 90. We were at plus 65.
yeah.
So our tick was about 480. So
Okay,
with the
great.
so that's the benchmark is that what the pool has allowed with the rating is that it gives developers rates that are comparable to more fully developed projects, even though they're at kind of an early stage.
Yeah. And
I'm not
and
sure
you
that
touched on
answered. I'm
some.
not sure that answered your question, but
No, you just opened up a lot more questions. So I like that, Bob. Thanks. And James, feel free to chime in here because it, in the early 80s, we were doing CFDs and we were building out of bond proceeds. And then I left the state for a while and came back and yeah, things
yeah,
have changed.
I didn't get there till the mid 80s.
Yeah. So you got me there, Bob.
Okay.
And so and if I look at our role, what we do around the country, it's accelerate cash flow into the pro forma, meaning I need it sooner rather than later, especially for that first tap turn on, that toilet flush when we're building the offsites, onsites, etc. And I heard you say we'll do early deals, yeah, meaning uh, and if I'm coming to you as a developer, let's put that hat on and go, James, Bob, I want to do a standalone CFD and I want to build out of bond proceeds. I know that I'm going to have my special tax, but I'm almost looking at it as an assessment at this point. I want to issue it, I want to secure it with the liens, and I want to build out of bond proceeds. How does that work? How does CDA look at that? Do you care? Yes or no? And then Bob, from an underwriting perspective, what is the mental calculus that you're going through saying, I got to see if this dog's going to hunt or not? And I know there's a lot in that question, but I think it'll be very informative to the audience.
Yeah, my suggestion would be work back a little bit and go to
Yeah.
the underwriting first, and then
Okay. Yeah.
I can tell you where we stand from the CSCDA perspective.
Okay. Good. That's a
let me
great
tell you,
answer. I mean, that's great insight.
let me give you an idea of a very early stage type project.
Sure.
And this is something that we do that's very unique to SCIP. And say you have a huge master plan community, like the one that's behind you.
Yeah.
And let's just say, I'm not going to use specifically names here, but there was uh, a special district, and there was a couple of cities that wanted to develop. They had no water, and they needed to put in a water reservoir. Otherwise, you can't develop without water. So basically, what SCIP did in a very early stage is that we took this very large 5,000 unit project that was tentative mapped, had specific plan zoning, was tentative mapped, and they needed to put in a $15 million water reservoir. So what we did was we financed the water reservoir through through fees, gave the money to the district, and then spread that out as a small assessment to the entire project. Okay. So that is the earliest stage. Now, this was tentative map property. It was totally undeveloped because you can't do a thing without water.
Yeah.
And it was extremely successful. The district went and they built the reservoir. The property then got water. Then what happened is then what you do is you come behind that and then you start laying over your CFDs, your kind of typical CFDs, where you then kind of break it into phases. So if you want to know where the earliest stage, we will do tentative map property. It typically will involve larger offsite critical infrastructure, but that can be done. I mean, we're not going to do something that's not tentative map. You know, you have to have a tentative map, but you don't necessarily have to have a final map finished lot. So to answer your question, we will do early stage assessment districts to finance kind of critical offsites. And I don't know if that answers your question, but that's one theory. Then what you
So what I heard is, if you know, whether somebody's working with a consultant similar to us, or if they have a specific question, and they may be a little early stage, but they have tentative track maps. Bob, do they give you a call and say, "Hey, Bob, I've got this idea," or do they talk to James first, and James says, "Hey, talk to Bob first," and then come back? I mean, what would be the pecking order, just to follow the protocol of CSCDA, to get a read on whether they got a dog that could potentially hunt through the CSCDA SCIP program?
Maybe.
Well, they generally call who they know.
Yeah. Good question. I like very pro. I love it.
And I think, Carter, to answer your question, we're really interchangeable. I mean, I talk to Bob probably 4 or 5 times a day, and I think if anyone calls either one of us and they have questions, or they have a proposal, or they have something, both of us can intake it and then run it by each other. Obviously, if there's any legal issues, we run it by Oric, who acts as bond counsel of the program. But I think in terms of who, either one of us are interchangeable from a CSCDA perspective or an RBC perspective, can be reached out to.
Great. And to our listeners, just so you know, both James and Bob's contact information will be included in the show notes, so you'll be able to reach out to, first of all, anybody you know, or if you don't know either of them, you'll have all their phone numbers. So thanks for that. That concludes part 1 of my conversation with James Hamill and Bob Williams. Please come back for part 2 on the next episode.